Alright guys, so today we're going to do a little bit of a different test drive. This is going to be still from the supercharger here in Eau Claire to downtown Eau Claire. So that's a route that you're familiar with if you've watched other videos on this channel. But the reason it's a little different is we're going to talk about some news that came up recently, and that is the recall with Tesla. So let's pay attention to this yellow light right here. Just want you to see that, because that is one of the things in the recall notice that's coming up. So just to be clear, on this vehicle I am using FSD version 10.69.25.2. This is software version 22.44.30.10, so it is actually pre-recall update. So vehicles that were affected include there are a total of 362,000, almost 363,000 vehicles affected by this recall, and they range from 2016 to 2023 Tesla's models S, 3, X, and Y. This is a 2020 Model Y long range, and so it is included in the recall notice. I did check the VIN, and I am expecting an over-the-air software update to address the issues that were identified. So there are really four situations that the recall notice wants to address. The first situation involves negotiating intersections during a stale yellow light. So that was actually one thing that we saw back there, where the light changed yellow and the car continued to proceed through the intersection and not make an attempt to stop. Now that particular intersection that we just went through is kind of questionable. I wouldn't necessarily fault the car for driving through that intersection, because I think the light was just green and maybe turning yellow as it was at the edge of the intersection. But other instances have occurred where I've been driving the vehicle, the light changes yellow, and the vehicle continues to proceed when it did have time to stop. We're going to see if we can capture that on one of the intersections here in downtown Eau Claire. The second thing that the recall notice intends to fix or address is how the vehicle proceeds through intersections where there's a stop sign. So the issue that the recall presents is that the intersection has a stop sign, the vehicle comes to a stop during that intersection, and then it delays proceeding through the intersection even when the intersection is clear. So it takes too long to assess whether it's safe to proceed through the intersection, and that in turn can create a traffic hazard or traffic backup if there are cars behind the vehicle with FSD that's at the stop sign. The third thing that the update intends to fix with the recall notice is how the car changes speeds when it detects speed zone changes. So here we see 45, there's a sign right there, 35, so it shows 35. The speed automatically adjusts during that. There are some instances where the car is driving, the speed changes, but because I've set a speed that's higher than that, it doesn't pick up the new speed and slow the car down. So it actually causes me, the driver in the car, to be in violation of speed limit law. And then the fourth thing that it intends to address involves how the car behaves in merging lanes. So there we saw a little bit of an issue with navigation where it wanted to get into that lane. So those four situations will be hopefully included in the fix, the over-the-air update fix that's coming to address the recall. Now, Elon Musk has stated in a tweet that it's not a true recall if it's an over-the-air software update. I agree with one thing, that if full self-driving beta is indeed a beta program, and the car clearly provides warning to the user that the driver remains in control, it's not fully autonomous, and I think Tesla's pretty clear about that, then we are essentially testing a new software platform, and fixes would be expected with that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an issue with the car or with some hardware in the car that would necessitate a recall. Certainly there are recalls that have to be brought into a service center or dealership to be addressed, and in this case, with an over-the-air software update, it's a minor fix, and so I don't know that it necessitates a recall. I think Tesla's continuously improving the FSD beta program by regular updates as it identifies itself that there are issues with full self-driving. And so it's taking action, the company is taking action to make improvements of the software without being mandated to do so by a government agency. Now, that being said, on the other side of the coin, I can see the government agency is receiving complaints and feels the need to take action. And so these are common themes that don't seem to have been addressed with recent software updates. And so they're urging Tesla to make the correction. So I think there's a pretty good check and balance system in place with the two entities, the corporation, the business, and the government, to make sure that these issues are addressed. This is the turn lane that I mentioned before that the car would be in. So it'd be in the rightmost lane, which does turn into an exit or turn only lane. And then it would make a sudden lane change over to this side, even when there's traffic present. So right here is the issue. Our car doesn't have that today, but that's the scenario that I think would be addressed in the software update. Aha, so the car did dive into that lane inadvertently. It did not have good lane discipline to maintain the route straight through, but it did correct itself. So that was interesting. That was a good catch. So we're just going to proceed on this route downtown. We will go through a couple of stoplights once we get down to the bottom. I'm going to increase the speed just for flow of traffic. I do intend to repeat this test following the update just to see what the improvements might be after the recall has been addressed with any of the issues that I've been seeing here. So we're just letting the car get into the right turn lane. Takes a little bit of time, even though as a human driver I would have just gone through that. Here's a yellow light. So notice that yellow light was there before we entered the intersection. I do feel like the car did get through the intersection before the light changed red, so it didn't delay or take its time and run a red light in that situation. And I do know that if a car is in the intersection, light changes yellow, that you do have time to clear the intersection even if it changes red. So I think it's questionable as far as what's enforceable or not enforceable in that situation. But in any case, the fact that full self-driving beta is maybe a little assertive in that type of scenario means that it will predispose you to being in violation of the traffic light control at the intersection. So I do want to notice one thing, or point out one thing as we're driving, that the car has been driving me this entire trip. I've not had to intervene at all, and that's a lot better than what I've seen in previous drives. And that's pretty typical of what I've been seeing lately with full self-driving beta as I've been out using it. It doesn't tend to do anything safety-wise that I feel I would need to intervene with. If anything, it might be just a little bit overly cautious. So that's good. We did have some pedestrians on the side of the road. The car did detect that they were not going to cross, and so it just proceeded. We do have a truck pulling out in front of us, and our car slowed down and stopped very nicely. That was perfect. So that truck did have a stop sign. I don't know if he stopped or not, but he pulled out in front of us, and our car reacted just perfectly to that situation. So in here I'm just slowing it down a little bit to give the car some time to react without slamming on the brakes if something does occur. And that brings us to the initial destination. So that will end that leg of the trip. I'm going to go ahead and reset. We're going to try to capture some of the scenarios that we're seeing with stop sign intersections. So I do want to get my trip reset and drive through some intersections just to see if we could reproduce the issue that we're seeing with the delay there. So here we are at a four-way intersection. So the car is stopped. Intersection's clear. And in this case, the car is proceeding through. So it's maybe just a little bit slower than what I would do, but I thought that the cadence of that intersection change and proceeding through it were just fine. I wouldn't have any issue with that. I think the issue is consistency, that the FSD Beta will tend to stop and wait too long at intersections. So it's not that it always occurs, but it is something that we do see on occasion, just frequently enough where it can be an issue. So this is just a little bit of a different scenario here. We're going to drive through some construction. I think the car did make a nice lane change here, anticipating that we do have some traffic hazards. And this construction zone is a nice test of FSD Beta, because on the map, that section over there is where the car would normally drive. It actually drove on the opposing traffic lane. So here's an example of that yellow light that I just talked about. So the car did have plenty of opportunity to stop in that, and I think that it took just a little long to recognize that, continue to proceed through the intersection. Again, I don't think it's a huge safety issue, but when that occurs, it does set the driver up for being in violation of traffic law. All right, so this route will take us out of the downtown area. We'll be heading up a hill, and then we'll be on just a short divided highway or divided road that has some stoplights before we arrive at our final destination. I'm still seeing an issue here, and it's not really a big safety issue, but I'm seeing an issue with the car putting on a turn signal for a natural curve or turn in the road. I have seen that a lot in the past with driving, and I noticed that the car thinks it's making a left-hand turn or right-hand turn. It will signal that. Not really an issue in terms of like safe driving, but it does convey maybe some inconsistent messaging to other drivers around, because there may actually be a turn from that intersection to the left, and I'm not going to take that turn, but the car is just following a route that turns to the left. So it may telegraph a message to another driver that's incorrect from what we are actually intending to do during the drive. So that could be a very minor safety issue, but it's more of an inconvenience, I think, in terms of how the car drives, and not behaving like other drivers would expect you to drive. So in this section so far, no issues with the drive. We are in the correct lanes, correct follow distance. Everything is proceeding nicely. Did slow down just a little bit there, and that brings to mind one of the things that the recall is not going to address, and one of the common concerns. So here we're stopping for a pedestrian. That was completely the car doing that. So I was ready to take over. I did wave her just to let her know that I was watching her, and it was okay for her to proceed. But I did let the car come to a stop and then proceed through after the pedestrian had cleared our path. So that piece of the full self-driving beta software, I feel, has been refined very well. I am always ready just in case there's an error, but I've seen pretty reliable, fairly reliable, consistent, safe behavior from FSD Beta in those situations. So here at the top of the hill, we're going to go through a roundabout intersection, and this will be 370-degree roundabout. So we're going to enter the roundabout, pass the first exit, and then get the second exit. Now I do see some lane issues here, where the car entered the roundabout with the incorrect lane entry, and then it did correct for that once it was in the roundabout. Here we're in the incorrect lane. We do want to make a left-hand turn. We do not have a stop sign here at this intersection, so it is our right to proceed straight through, and the car does that. And we have a little bit of an unexpected situation here at the top of the hill. There is a traffic accident. We're going to see how the car does with this. So I don't think that the car is programmed to know what to do here, but this intersection, this turn is actually closed. We should be making a right-hand turn here and rerouting around this intersection. So I'm just doing that manually. Unable to get full self-driving going there. All right, get us on our way just right here. I didn't give the car enough time to set that up, so I'm actually going to get us set up right here. See if we can do a U-turn to get back on our route. So the car is preparing to make a U-turn. See if we could do this safely. Nope, it doesn't see that vehicle coming through there. This is very tenuous. I don't know that I would trust full self-driving in this situation, and we're good. Did have a car coming in there. That was interesting. So I'm going to intervene and just give a little bit of accelerator to get going. So the car, that's a little surprising for me because I haven't tried full self-driving in that scenario before, but it did successfully indicate a U-turn on the screen, and it did make the U-turn successfully. There was a car coming, this white SUV here on our left, that was coming in the lane, but there's enough space that we could get in front of it. So I didn't feel like that was a safety issue, but I was monitoring that situation very closely because I wasn't sure how fast traffic was coming up, and I didn't want to be another accident like the one we just passed there. So the four things, just to recap, the four things that the recall will intend to address will be how the car proceeds through stale yellow light intersections, the delay that the car has when it's proceeding through a four-way intersection when the intersection is clear, we're actually going to be making a right-hand turn up here, so I just am pausing to assess what the car is doing. How well the car adjusts its speed during speed zone changes when it detects a new speed here on the screen. And we didn't run into a lot of scenarios where that occurred during this drive, so I didn't get to test that. There was only one scenario before we got into the downtown area for that. And then the last situation is how the car emerges from a turn-only lane back into another lane, back into the left lane when the route requires it to do so. So it doesn't turn off the road or make an incorrect turn off the route. All right, so the last thing the car needs to do for this drive is to get into the right lane and exit this road up at the intersection up here. So did give itself some nice separation from the car behind us that we just passed. Proceeding up to the intersection. And it's going to have a little bit of a complicated turn here. So we're going to make a right turn, then immediate left. We're going to see how the car does because there is another car coming up here, right here. Good, good. Again, I did not intervene there. I was ready to go, but the car actually proceeded. That driver waved me through, and there's a gap there. The car saw the gap, and it took the left turn as I would expect it to. So the artificial intelligence in the driving FSD Beta is doing a very good job predicting different traffic situations and making the correct action for as compared with what I would do as a driver. All right, I just want to jump back in here. So I'm actually on my way home from work right now, and I wanted to show this little clip of video because this is an example of the merge out of a turn lane or exit from a turn lane issue that I've observed many times before with my Tesla Model Y that I think will be fixed with the recall update. So here we are coming up to the red light. We're going to make a right-hand turn, and the turn lane that we turn into is immediately an exit lane to get into the mall. We do want to be in the center lane once we make this turn, and so we'll make the turn. We'll see how the car does getting out of the lane if it does it in time. So here we are. Car did that turn all by itself. Now it should be moving over at this point. Should be moving over, and we can see right here, almost to the intersection, that it moved over. So that's a little too late for what we should see with a merge or with a turn lane exit to continue on our route. So that's going to do it for this video. I will plan to do another one following the recall update here and show you what the next version of software does and if it addresses any of those situations that we saw during this drive. Well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.